Hello, my name is LoG, and welcome to part 3 of this small arpeggio power-up. If you enjoy this type of instruction and material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below for my entire guitar method. Now let's get on to the lesson. Alright, so quick recap before we start this part. I'm going to play everything we've learned in the previous videos up to this moment, and that's pretty much 2 repetitions of the first part, and then we have that little chromatic ending of that second repetition that leads us into what we'll talk about today. So let me play all of that first so you know where we're at. Here we go. Now we repeat again, normal. Here's the little variation we talked about in the last video, that little chromatic walk up from F to A. And this is where we begin today's part. So this part is going to be a lot more chordy, and kind of the structure is different than what we've done so far, but it's actually pretty uniform most of the time. So we're going to be doing what we're going to be doing is play small little chord shapes, pretty much like we've been talking about, except all of these shapes are going to be 4-note shapes. So instead of only playing 1, 3, 5 in the previous section we were playing small little chord shapes plus maybe one other note like a 2 or a 7 or whatnot. But the chords we're going to be playing today are mostly going to be 4-string chords. So we're going to be doubling something. So for example, the first shape that we're playing right here is a D major chord with the 5 on the top and the 5 in the bottom. Generally, that's how all of these shapes are going to go. Whatever note is on the top, we're going to be repeating on the bottom. So it's not just a 3-note chord. Well, it's still a 3-note chord, but we're adding in one more double of that particular note. Again, we're going to talk about the small chord shapes, make sure you know what's happening. But yeah, that's going to be the structure. So we're going to descend those shapes, and then we're going to jump up and come down a kind of scalular melody, which takes us to the next chord, and we kind of repeat over and over again, flowing through different types of chords as we go. So let's just get started with the first one. So we ended up on this A right here. Like I just mentioned, that's the top note of the next chord. The chord we're playing at this moment, this kind of shifts the tune into sort of a different key to some extent. We're coming down D major right here. So you can think about this shape coming from the normal bar chord that everyone knows, just that A string, normal major shape. That's what we're doing, but we're only coming down 4 strings worth. So we're starting on the 5th up top. That's the A. If you want to think about the root for this chord, you can look here as the root, or you can look here on the G string. Both of those are viable roots, but you want to have those notes highlighted in your head so you always know what you're doing. The shape we're doing, very simple, coming down A, F sharp, D, A. So that's 5, 3, 1, 5 of that D chord. Again, you can look at it like this. It's like imagine playing this bar chord, but only playing the bottom 4 strings. So again, 5, 3, 1, 5. That's the shape. Also, pretty much every time I'm doing any of these descending 4-string chords, the technique that I'm using is downstroke on the top string and then upstroke for the other 3. Not saying that's going to be the best thing for you to do, but if you're wondering how I'm doing it, that's pretty much how I'm doing it most of the time for all of these chords. You can experiment with a variety of things, of course, but maybe try that. That might work for you. So after that, we are then jumping up to the high E string D right here, and pretty much walking down a scale, taking us to our next chord. So again, that D chord. Also notice my fingering. You might be inclined to do this, like flatten a finger, but that might feel fine at the moment. But to get into the next part, remember the next note you're playing is here. So that's that D on the high E string. So I'm purposefully playing this with a fingering that allows me to hit pointer finger on the bottom, which allows my pinky to reach up and grab the next note of the phrase. So super important that you're kind of planning ahead with your fingering. So again, jumping up, and by the way, I'm doing pointer, ring, middle, pointer, if you want to get more specific about it. Jumping up to this top note, very simple. It's pretty much a G major scale walking down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? Really simple. And then when we get to this root right here, guess what we do? Come down this chord, G major. And it's going to be same structure as I talked about before, a chord where we're doubling the top notes. So we have the root on top, and we come down 1, 5, 3, and then another root on the bottom like that. This is a very, very classic shape. I kind of use this shape in the beginning of this series, demonstrating what the kind of normal arpeggio shape that people like to play. This is just 4 strings worth of that. right? That kind of standard shape. Again, I don't necessarily look at it as one shape. I look at it as two smaller ones, or really a variety of smaller ones. Again, you always want to have that stuff in mind. So one more time, coming down D major, jump up to this D up top, walk down to scale, Now jump down this, or walk down, I should say, this G major arpeggio, 1, 5, 3, 1. Same exact structure. After we hit this 1, we're jumping way up to the high E string, walking down another scale in this case. Right, walking down to this E right here, which begins another chord shape, okay? So let me just show you that little passage one more time. Coming down G major, jump up to its third, but up an octave. So you can think of this as the root. That's the third, of course. We're hitting this note, but up an octave, right? Walking down a scale, B, A, G, F sharp, and then E. And that takes us to the F sharp chord that we're about to play. And not just normal F sharp, but F sharp dominant, which we'll talk about here in a second. So let me recap all that. D major, jump up, walk down. G major, jump up, walk down. That takes us to this figure. I'll play it. Okay, so this shape is F sharp dominant, at least really for the first chord. The harmony that's being played here just in general in the music is definitely F sharp dominant. And we are literally playing that right off the bat. Okay, so you can think about it like this. Here's our small shape. This is our small chord shape, right? 1, 3, 5. The exact same shape that we just played on G, right? The only difference is we were adding in that higher octave. Now we're doing the same thing but back a fret, and we are starting on its flat 7, right? Where is its flat 7? If this is our root, which it is in this case, 1, 3, 5, flat 7 is always located. There's a lot of ways you can find it, but the two ways that I personally like, because it just makes sense to me, it's always located up 3 frets from 5. So if you're playing 1, 3, 5, go up 3 frets, 1, 2, 3, that's always flat 7. So if you're playing like a dominant 7th sound and you know where the 5th of the chord is, simply walk up 3 frets or a minor third or a pointer pinky's distance, that's always flat 7. You can also find it back a whole step from any root that you're ever playing. So for example, if this is 1, 3, 5, if that's a 1, go back a whole step, that's flat 7, right? If this is a 1 up here, up the octave, go back a whole step, that's flat 7. If this is a 1 up here, up the octave on the B string, go back a whole step, that's flat 7. Or back a whole step here, also flat 7, right? Important to always keep those little shapes in mind. That's how you can navigate around the fretboard. So we're coming down one more time from that flat 7. The fingering I'm using, let's see. I think I'm usually shooting for that. Sometimes I'll use ring finger to start. Kind of depends on what I'm doing at that moment. But we're just coming down pinky, pointer, ring, pinky, and that's flat 7, 5, 3, 1. And then after that, we hit these 4 notes. We continue playing F sharp, but now just F sharp triad, no dominant 7th here. And the way we do that is we make that jump up to the high E string 3rd. It's actually the exact jump that we just made with the G major. So if you remember G major coming down like this, when we hit this pinky, we jumped up to the high string. That's the 3 of this note. If that's your root, that's the 3. It's just up an octave, right? That's the exact jump that we're making now. Watch this G major, jumping up here, walking down our little scale, takes us to this note. Watch this move. F sharp dominant 7th, flat 7, 5, 3, 1. See that jump? Up to the 3rd. It's the exact same thing as we just did on G, just back a fret. And when we get here, we come down another small chord shape. This one should be pretty familiar. It still comes from that standard major arpeggio that I started this whole series off. And again, coming down 4 strings worth. So what's it going to look like? If the 3rd is on top, we're repeating the 3rd on the bottom. 3, 1, 5, 3. I'm sure you've played this shape before. Super classic shape, right? That is a shape with 3 on the bottom and on the top. And we come down like that. I'm going to play everything up to that point. So D major, okay, little scale. G major, jump up to its 3rd, walk down little scale. F sharp dominant 7th, come down flat 7, 5, 3, 1. Fingering's a little different right there because flat 7 and 5 are on the same string, which allows you to do a little pull off if you want to, which I'm pretty sure I'm doing. Then jumping up to the 3rd on top, come down the chord. Again, that's 3, 1, 5, 3. Right? After we get to this point, this part's a little tricky because the position change is a little, or not obvious, but obnoxious because you do have to kind of jump from here to there because we actually need the pinky right here for this next shape. So coming down F sharp 7, right? F sharp major, really. Then we hit this B on top, and we actually come down a B minor chord right here. This is the bottom 4 strings of your standard bar chord. Again, because it's a 4-string chord, and we're only playing a triad, we're repeating the top note. So this shape is 1, 5, flat 3, and then 1 again. We played this shape in the previous parts, right? This little 1, 3, 5 minor on the D string. Okay, one more time, walking down. Now, instead of walking all the way down to the root, which that is the shape, we are actually playing one more note before that, which places this root on the downbeat. And that note is the 2. So watch this shape. 1, 5, flat 3, 2. and then 1. So there are 2 ways to play this. I'm reaching for the 2 right here because it's easy to do because I can maintain the same picking configuration that I'm doing. I'm doing downstroke, up, up, up. Now, of course, you might say, well, wait a minute, the 2 is also here, right? If you're ever playing minor and you have a flat 3, go back a fret or back a half step, however you want. You're always playing 2. So I could do this if I wanted to, right? But I'm playing this. Again, why? It's more awkward on the left hand, but it allows my right hand to maintain the exact same picking configuration that it has been doing. What did I just do with this F sharp right here? Coming down, 3, 1, 5, 3. Watch my right hand. Down, upstroke, follow through, follow through. Now watch it here. Down, upstroke, follow through, follow through. It's exactly the same thing. Whereas if I chose to play the 2 here, the picking would be different. I would have to go like down, upstroke, follow through, downstroke, upstroke, or something like that. So I like maintaining the right hand picking configuration. I'll always pretty much do that. I'll sacrifice the comfort on the left hand so that my right hand feels better. I'll pretty much always do that. So let's play everything up to that point. So we have D major coming down, right? Normal. Again, watch my right hand, pretty much doing the same thing. Little scale, jumping up to this D on top. This is like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of G. After we hit the G right here, coming down the chord. That's 1, 5, 3, 1. Then jumping up to the 3rd on the high string, kind of a jump, but possible, right? Hit this note, walk back until you hit this E. That's the flat 7, 5, 3, 1 of F sharp, right? You can do a pull off right there if you want, or you can do downstroke, 1 upstroke, follow through, up to you. Jump up to the high E string 3rd of F sharp, exactly what we just did on G, just back a fret, come down the chord. That one's just triad, 3, 1, 5, 3. Right? After this point, you have to move that pointer finger up here, see where that chord is, watch my pointer finger here. Now you jump up here to grab the B minor, and I also reach my pinky to get ready to play that too. And then we hit this B as our final note. And to wrap the whole thing, we walk up an arpeggio from here, but not B minor, B dominant. Okay, I'll play that. B minor. The moment we play this, we are now playing B7, 1, 3, not flat 3, 3, 5, flat 7, little dominant right there. 1, 3, 5, flat 7. Again, remember what I mentioned earlier about finding flat 7? If you know where 5 is, which is the top of this little 3-note chord, that's one of the ones we were using in the previous parts. 1, 3, 5. If this is 5, where was flat 7? Always up 3 frets, right? Just like it was right here for that F sharp, remember? F sharp major, 1, 3, 5, up 3 frets. Takes you to that flat 7 of that chord. Same thing here, B major, 1, 3, 5, go up 3 frets, takes you to flat 7 of that chord. That's all I'm doing right there. So 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and then we end here on this G, and that is the 3rd of the next chord that begins the next part as we go through these videos. So I'm going to walk through this one more time nice and slow, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the harmony, and then we'll prep this backing track. So let's come down each chord. Again, D major, jump up to the D, walk down. G major, right? Jump up to the 3rd, walk down. F sharp dominant, excuse me. F sharp dominant, jump up to the 3rd, come down. All right, let's play those 2 shapes. Next one, right? That's the same chord, just 2 little hits of it. Then B minor with a 2, which I'm reaching right here. 1, 5, flat 3, 2 way up here, and then dominant 7th B, 1, 3, 5, flat 7 on the B, and then ending on this E. By the way, for that little ascending arpeggio, I'll just do this whole passage. Coming down B like I've just been doing. When I hit this note right here, that's downstroke, middle finger, ring finger, pick, and then maybe upstroke, I think. Actually, no, I'm definitely hammering on. I'm going pick, middle finger, ring finger, hammer on with the pinky, and then middle finger right here. So again, watch that right hand. If you want to try this, you don't have to. You can do a straight like downstroke sweep. That's also totally cool. I'm not great at those, so I'm not doing that, but I am going pick, right here, middle finger, ring finger, hammer on, and then that middle finger for that final note, right? So what's going on with the harmony right here, just so you can kind of understand the general structure. Not all of these chords, but many of these chords are 5/ofs, meaning you're playing a chord that is the 5 of the following chord, and that pushes the music through each change in this kind of ear-pulling way, right? Every time you hear these chords, your ears are kind of pulled to the next chord. So the first chord is D major. right? Also keep in mind, what key are we coming from? The previous parts of the video, we were in B flat major. We were pretty much just playing B flat, C minor over and over again, had a couple other chords in there, but notice the chord we're playing now. In the key of B flat, what are we playing? D major. That's not in the key, right? That is a major 3 chord. In my own teaching through my own Patreon series, I've talked at length about this sound. I call it the spicy 3, but you can call it whatever you want. In reality, all it is a 5 chord of the next chord, because the next chord is what? G, right? So I'm just playing D, which is the 5 of G, and it resolves to that sort of move. 5, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the other thing I'm doing, again, to pull your ear even further away from the key, remember what key we're in, B flat, right? I'm playing D, which makes sense, just the 5 of G, but what is G in the key of B flat? G is G minor, right? Because that's a 6 chord, but I'm playing G major, right? And I can do that. I can mess with the harmony with these moves and pull your ears in these different ways as long as I, follow it and know what I'm doing. So that's what that shape is. We're coming down D, the 5 of G, and then hits G, right? And then what do we do? That's F sharp dominant 7. What is that? That's the 5 of the next chord, which is what? B minor, right? That's how I'm moving through. That's how I'm moving through the shape. So F sharp dominant, that's the 5 of this, B minor. And then what I do, B dominant, which is the 5 of the next chord. That's B7, 5 of the next chord, E minor, right? So it's just all these little 5 ofs moving around to different chords. And that's why, if you're wondering, this whole power up kind of has like a classical music sort of sound, because this is a very typical move that you would hear. I mean, people have been doing this exact move for, like 400 years. It's not uncommon. It's very, very, it's pretty much, it makes up the entire sound of that older style classical music like Bach, Mozart. Once you hit Beethoven, kind of changed a little bit, but yeah, this is a very, very common sound for that style. And it's just a bunch of 5s. So if I'll play them all in chords, not the actual part, but just the plain chord shapes. So it would go D, the 5 of G major, and then F sharp 7, the 5 of B minor, and then real quick B7, the 5 of E minor, and that's the whole thing. So that's that move. I'll play one more time. D, G, F sharp dominant, right? B minor, B major, dominant, and then E minor. Right, so that's the sound, just for fun. Let's do this part one more time, and then we'll get to that backing track. So from the beginning, D major, G major, F sharp, B minor, up B dominant 7th, and then we end right here. Very short little part. And that's the whole thing. So we're going to run just this part alone with a backing track. And then we're going to come back, talk about how we're going to connect part 1 into this section so you have a smooth flowing part. So let's get on to this first backing track. All right, so now that that part is comfortable, we're now going to practice getting from that first section, that kind of B flat, C minor, back and forth loop, into this second section. So what we're going to do is play not the entire loop of the first section, but just the second half, or just the second loop, I should say, that ends with that chromatic figure, which then leads us into what we just played. So I'm going to play exactly what this backing track is going to be. We start in the beginning just like normal, but we go right into that second main section with that little chromatic figure. Sounds like this. Chromatic. And then begin again. Just the second loop. Chromatic. And we repeat over and over again. I will say that the music for this might be a little strange because we are coming from that last chord that you're hearing when I hit this note. E minor. We're coming from E minor. I'm pretty sure I'm playing E minor, then right back to B flat major to begin. It's definitely a startling key change right there. So honestly, as I listen to it, I think it's kind of cool, but yep, that's what you're going to hear. So yeah, get all these sections together, do any recap, whatever you need to have. I would definitely maybe practice just isolated the little chromatic figure into the arpeggios to make sure that's comfortable, make sure that connection is really strong between the two parts, and we'll get on to this backing track. All right, that does it for part 3 of this small arpeggio power-up. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instruction material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below for my entire guitar method. See you in part 4.